I'm here to welcome to the stage Gabe Tu and JP Paramore from BlackRock. It is the world's largest investment corporation. Gabe actually works here in San Francisco, and JP is coming from London. Gabe oversees release management, personnel, processes, and technology, and JP leads the software tools team. So they're here to talk about how their firm of 12,000 employees rock 500 software deployments a week. So welcome Gabe and JP to the stage.
Hello, hi. Who's Carolyn? Carolyn? Oh, happy birthday. All right, I don't know what else to say. Happy birthday. All right, so today JP and I are going to talk about release management with JIRA at BlackRock. We're going to split off the conversation into three main parts. I'm going to give the problem statement and an overview of the company. JP will follow up with all the technical detail, and then I'll finish it up with an example of the last pieces of our integration, which was with our trading platform software and an iPad application. JP, he's also a thespian, so he's going to be doing his presentation with a British accent. So I'd like to hear feedback on that too. All right, here are my pieces. So BlackRock, we're the largest asset management firm in the world. Manage close to $5 trillion in assets. You might know us by the name iShares. iShares being our family of exchange-traded funds. Then there's Aladdin, which is our end-to-end investment platform. Unlike other finance companies, we also sell Aladdin to our clients and some of our competitors, which makes us unique in the space, whereas the technology that we develop is also a money-generating arm of the firm, and we reinvest that money into our technology. There's BlackRock Solutions. BlackRock Solutions is our client-facing subject matter experts in regards to investment management, risk management, and they're also our liaison into our Aladdin clients. All right, to give you an idea of the problems that we had to solve with our process, I want to show you how our technology is aligned to our business. So here's our business. Business Group A, let's say that's our portfolio managers. Business Group B, for example, could be our traders, all right? JP and I belong to a group called the Aladdin Product Group. So the way we're organized is that we have a product group designated for a specific business line, all right? Each product group is about 150 to 300 people, and there are approximately 8 or 9 product groups. And there they are. JP and I belong to a group that used to be called Development Services. I think the new name is
CSI.
CSI now. All right, JP and I sit here, but unlike the other product groups, our responsibilities are not to a specific product line, but they're across all the development teams, all right? So there are developers, of course, there are teams of developers, team owners, then product group owners, all right? So that should give you an idea of the complexities that we have within our technology and business relationship and organization. All right. The types of releases we have are low risk and medium risk, and those releases require review by the team owner. When they're reviewed and approved, then they're approved for production release. Then we have our high risk releases, which also have to be reviewed by our team owners, but then they have to go through another layer of review by our product group owners and a group of subject matter experts, for example, a database architect if it's a database change, all right? Now, more to our complexity, then I'll hand it over to the JP. Our deployment for Aladdin, that's likely our most complicated type of deployment. Remember, we have numerous development teams, numerous product groups with numerous releases that are going to our Aladdin platform. So this depicts our development testing environments. And our release cycles go into BlackRock first. They soak there for 2 weeks. We use them. And then we start our deployments into our client environments. We have about 65 client environments right now. But again, the development teams, they work with the product group owners and the clients on the role of the releases and the schedules of releases. So development team 1, they roll out to the first wave of their clients. Development team 2 comes in on top of them, and they deploy, and then they go through iteration and waves. So that should give you some idea of the complexities that we actually have to manage through. with our instance of JIRA. More. All right, by the numbers, 500 deployments a week is what we're looking at. We have a productions operation teams that is the gateway into production. We have 65 distinct clients, 181 million lines of code, and approximately 4,000 members of technical staff and users that consume our data. So some of the bespoke needs for BlackRock that we were trying to address with the process solution were, we're a build-first shop. So whatever tool that we chose to help supplement our process, it had to integrate well with our existing technologies and processes. We need a holistic SDLC solution, right? So our process had to manage from idea inception all the way to production deployment. And because JP and I are in roles of central governance, we really can't dictate how the development teams develop. They can be waterfall, they can be agile, or combinations of the two. And JIRA helps us do that. All right, I'm going to blow through this slide pretty quickly because JP is going to come right now and give you the technology solutions for our process requirements. JP?
Thank you. So Gabe just mentioned that we're a build-first organization. And so why are we building on JIRA? Why didn't we build something from scratch? Well, we actually did. In actual fact, we did it 2 or 3 times. And the reason why we decided that it really wasn't working was because the process kept on changing and our tooling really couldn't keep up with it. And we ended up with effectively the tool leading the process rather than effectively us controlling the process ourselves. So that's why we decided to build on a platform. So why did we build on JIRA? We had a lot of experience in-house. We also, our development community also were using JIRA as an SDLC tracker for issues. So it was going to reduce effectively our costs of training, etc. But in terms of the actual platform itself, in terms of extensibility, JIRA has that out of the box. It has SDKs. We knew we were going to have to extend JIRA to interface with all of our tools. And a mammoth, the marketplace in terms of plugins is huge. The vendors outside. We need to be able to model relationships. So in terms of subtask links, we get that for free as well. Visibility. The number of times I've been asked, oh, can you pull a report to do this? Can you pull a report to do that? Quite often we're going back to write SQL to actually pull this stuff out. We don't need that with JIRA. We can actually get the groups to go fish and actually search for the information themselves. Scalability, we had no issues there at all. We know JIRA scales. We've actually got another JIRA instance with nearly 500,000 issues in it. And control, we definitely knew that JIRA would provide the control features we need through workflow, issue types, and screens. So that's why we chose JIRA. And we decided to not only use JIRA, but build on top of JIRA and build an application, which we refer to as release path. So drilling a little bit further. So we knew from the outset that although JIRA has a lot of great functionality, we were going to have to extend it. So we were going to have to write some code. And so we built our own release path plugin. We actually built several. And they provided a lot of extra functionality, whether that was new custom fields for our bespoke requirements, some post functions via the workflow, for example, to create meeting invites. We knew we had to have lots of new web services to integrate with our Aladdin dashboard trading system software. Our deployment tools, they also, whenever you try and do a deployment, we have to go and validate that the actual release has been approved. So we needed to provide that. We also wanted to make sure that we were talking using the terminology that our users were familiar with. So this is what it looked like. So as Gabe mentioned, we have a holistic view to the SDLC and the release management process. So from inception all the way through to production deployment. We divided up effectively the information that we wanted to gather on a release, which we refer to as a release packet, sort of the bundling of all of the information, into separate tabs. Very colourful. So let me move on to our intelligent voting custom field. So this was a custom field we developed really to overcome one of the limitations that we found with the workflow. Although JIRA workflow is very, very flexible, it's also serial. And we wanted to make sure that we had lots of subject matter experts who wanted to provide a review in terms of whatever release we were going to do. But we wanted to make sure they could do that in parallel. And our intelligent voting field allows that. So effectively, inside the field, and we've got multiple instances of these fields, we can define all of the subject matter experts. Each of those subject matter experts can go in, they will see just their section, which they can approve, deny, ask for further discussion. And the commenting when they actually ask for further discussion is in that field. So rather than using JIRA's commenting, which is fine, but what will normally happen is you get 3 or 4 questions being asked and then 3 or 4 answers, and trying to tie those together was really difficult. But this allows us to have contextual questions and answers inside this field. In addition to that, there's an algorithm that runs effectively. Upon providing any voting, at the end of it, we decide whether we have enough votes for the packet to move forward to the next state. And then talking our language. We developed our own language pack, which was pretty easy to be able to effectively talk our language. So rather than create issues, we've now got create packets. And you'll see this all over the interface. And with 5 lines of code, we were able to inject a menu directly into the interface. So this gave us the ability to have quick links to all of the documentation we have about our release process that we host in Confluence. Relationships. So we needed to be able to model a release. So we saw a release being in 2 parts. We've got what we refer to as a release packet which we modeled as a parent issue type in JIRA. And it represented the concept of a release. So why are we doing this release? What benefits is it going to bring? What technologies are we going to be using? And then inside that, we broke that down into deployment packets, which we implemented as subtasks. And they represent the sort of the manifestation of how we're going to get this thing that we've conceptually decided is a good idea out into the production environment. So that would include things like what are all the components? What are the, who's actually going to be involved? Who's going to do this release? What are the steps? What client is it? What client or set of clients is this going out? What day is this going out? Who's going to be doing the checkout, etc.? But with this modeling, we knew we had to provide a lot of automation as well. Because we knew, we didn't want a situation, you create a release packet, and then you have to go and create a deployment packet, lots of clicking. We always know that every single release is going to have at least 1 deployment, so we can automate that. And using Bob Swift's Clone Plus and Create on Transition plugins, we're able to automate a lot of the subtask management. So this is what it looked like. This is a parent packet, and we replaced the subtasks with deployments. We also were able to customize the fields that you actually see in the subtasks. You don't have to stick with the defaults that Atlassian provide you. So in our case, we've got 4 deployments shown here that we're modeling. The first deployment was to the database schema. So that went out to all clients in one go. And that was implemented by the DBAs. We then had a beta release that went out to, say, the BlackRock environment that was implemented by our production operations team. We then did a production release. And then finally, the third, or the fourth, is an illustration of something that never happens at BlackRock, a rollback. So if you were to drill into 3 and 4, what you'd actually see is as soon as when you're in a deployment, when you want to roll it back, click 1 button, it will automatically create the deployment packet for you, and it'll actually link them as well. So we've got a full history of exactly what was rolled back, because it might have been a partial rollback, for example, and we want to capture what was actually happening at any point in time. So you've released to, say, the BlackRock environment. Now you want to release out to all of our other external clients, as Gabe discussed. To do that, a lot of the information is going to be the same. So we want to be able to clone. We couldn't use JIRA's out-of-the-box cloning functionality because that clones everything in the issue, which is great. But if you've, as I showed, the intelligent approval field, it's going to clone that as well. And that's obviously not what we want. We don't want pre-approved packets. Although the developers probably would. So on clicking, in this case, clone a particular deployment, we're able to control which fields we're going to copy across into the new sibling packet, and also default fields if necessary. So I'm not going to go into all of the great visualization functionality that JIRA provides. If you don't know it, there's demo areas out there, have a look. What I'm going to talk about is what we did on top of what JIRA provides to improve visibility to our users, really looking at scale. So what JIRA, if you look at some of the emails that come out of JIRA, they're a little bit basic. The status has changed. This field has changed. There's no real context to where we are in the workflow. And we wanted to provide a lot more information to the recipient of this email so they know what to do next. All emails in JIRA are controlled via velocity templates. So we created a series of custom events which we're able to fire all the way through our workflow that called these custom velocity templates. When we get new developers, new people coming in, maybe a new DBA who's going to be reviewing new database changes that are coming in, we have, as Gabe mentioned, we have 500 releases every week. There's a lot of packets out there for people to look at, and we wanted to make sure that they weren't bombarded with all this stuff, and they could focus exactly on what they needed to review. So obviously, dashboards, great. We could curate those for them, that's fine, but a new user, they've got to find those dashboards. And we wanted to make it easy for them. So using CatWorkX's dashboard distribution plugin, we were able to, based on the role that they're in or the group that they're in, we were able to push out dashboards to them. So the first time they log in, they get the experience that we want them to do, i.e. they're going to see the packets that they can see. We ask a lot of questions, probably too many questions inside our packets. I know our developers would definitely agree. And one of the problems that we find with reviewing in the JIRA interface is we've got all these tabs, and you've got to know which questions are in which tabs, which is fine when you're inputting the information, but when you're actually reviewing it, it can be quite difficult. So using Midori's PDF View plugin, we were able to create a much more concise view for people, which is customizable to their particular role. So let's have a look at what one of those looks like. So under the View menu, we have PDF attachments. So let's have a look at that. So this concise digest shows 28 different fields that we've pulled from different areas of the release system. And we can also include attachments. But there's more. With this plugin, you can actually just run a query. So if I'm like a relationship manager at one of our clients, and I want to tell my clients effectively what's going to happen this weekend, I can run a JQL query, pull out all of the packets that are going to happen to my client this weekend. One click, I can create a single PDF with all of that packet information, including any attachments if necessary. So we know JIRA will scale, but I really want to talk more about how we made our process scale. So emails. We get a lot of emails, and they can be helpful. We want to make sure that the emails that you receive, as we've mentioned, have got a lot of information in, but we wanted to make sure that they were actionable as well. So if you're this really is helpful when we're talking about emergency bug fixes, for example. We've got a small set of people who can actually approve those, but they might not actually be at their desk at the time. So how do we get around that? So we created actionable templates or actionable emails. So when somebody receives the email, they've got enough information to judge whether, yes, they're happy to approve it. They would then reply, approved. It would go to JIRA. It cuts effectively a new comment. We then have a server-side process that's scanning for those comments. If it sees the word approved, it validates that approval actually came from one of the listed EBF approvers. If it does, auto-approves. All releases, when we think about, a lot of our releases are very similar in terms of if you're releasing one piece of software, the chances are the next time you release that software, a lot of the same questions, or the answers to those questions are going to be the same. So we wanted to make sure that we could speed up the process. We didn't want the release process to get in the way of development. So we allowed for packet templating, so we can create effectively a cookie cutter situation, so people can then focus on what really counts, which is the risk of the release, and actually the coding of the release, than the so-called bureaucracy. Speed of delivery. This is probably the number one reason why we chose JIRA in the first place. We were able to create a working prototype, and this included installing JIRA on some hardware in less than 2 days. We could get a fully functioning system that could prototype effectively what we were trying to achieve. We didn't write a single line of code. We've written quite a lot of code since then to actually make it sort of a little bit more flash. But we were able to prove the point in a couple of days. It's also helped us when we get new enhancements. We're able to, in sometimes hours rather than days or weeks, demonstrate whether they're going to work or not. They don't all work, but we can actually, because it doesn't take us that long to actually demonstrate these things, we're actually able to do that and move on. So this is what one of these emails looks like. Pulling in various fields from the JIRA ticket, and right at the bottom, you'll see the instructions for how you would approve one of these emails. In terms of control, all releases are different. So we've got those 500 releases every week. Some of them are major changes to our trading system. Others may be a very small configuration change. So we needed a process that would actually allow us to scale and have a much more risk-orientated situation. So we have different types of packets based on risk, and we used issue types. So for example, an emergency bug fix has different questions potentially to a planned release or a configuration change. We used workflow control so that our workflow was dynamic based on the risk of the change that you're making. And also, it was dynamic based on the questions that you answer. So if you say that you're going to include a new database table and some schema changes to the database, automatically we're able to pull in the database architects to provide review. And that's all based on dynamic workflow. So we implemented JIRA with release path with a plethora of plugins. I've mentioned some of them already. I want to just highlight a couple of others, or three actually. Script Runner. This allows you to create, using Groovy, some quite sophisticated fields. And it's really good for prototyping. We've possibly used it a little bit too much in our live system, and we are trying to pull away a little bit from that for performance reasons. But it is really, really powerful. The SU plugin from the plugin people, not something that our users use, but I use every day. It allows me to super user into any user. Release path is a very, very role-based system. So I want to be able to make sure that an SME is the only person who can actually provide that SME approval, for example. And it's also really good for debugging production issues. I'm sure there's loads of people out there who have had some user phone them up and say, I can't see this or I can't do that in my system. We can actually log in as them to see or talk them through where maybe that button is hiding. And finally, nfeed, which is from Valiansys. This is a plugin that provides the ability to connect to an external data store, so that could be a DBMS, file system, a web service, and pull that information into a custom field in JIRA. We use that, in one instance of where we use that is pulling information from our HRDB database to pull in both IM information and, more importantly, the phone numbers. With a little bit of like 7 or 8 lines of JavaScript, we're now able to provide integration inside the tool into our Cisco phone system. So you can actually, if somebody's held your packet, I can click a button and give them a call. So I printed quite a rosy picture of how to build an application on top of JIRA. But there are some challenges that are definitely worthwhile highlighting. First one is version control. We have 3 environments for release path development. We have development, QA, production. And when you've got this great user interface for making configuration change, it's fantastic. But you've got to make sure that the same change you do in development, you also do in QA and into production. And when that's a manual interface, there's a lot of room for human error. There are ways to script that, and we've done a little bit of this, but we've got a ways to go. Also, because this configuration data is commingled with the issue data, we have to really think about, when we do rollbacks, how do we do that? Because we can't just restore the database, because we're going to lose data in that case if anybody's created new packets during the time that we did the release. Upgrades, because we've got a lot of dependencies on the Atlassian SDK, we've probably made a little bit too many customizations that are dependent on the document object model of a page. It makes JIRA upgrades a very non-trivial task. And it's definitely something to be thinking about, and it's definitely something we're thinking about in the future to reduce our dependencies on definitely the document object model. And then, as we built more and more interfaces on top of release path and on top of JIRA, that makes any small change you make into JIRA much more difficult or much more risky because we've got a lot more dependencies. With that, I'm going to hand over to Gabe, who's going to talk about the release path integration with the trading system.
Thanks, JP. That was great. I give your accent about a 7. I like how you whisper it, but a few more pip-pips and trios would be good. All right, so what am I doing here? I'm going to show you our final pieces of the integration, which was our integration with JIRA to our Aladdin dashboard. So we love JIRA, obviously, but some of the challenges we had when managing 500 deployments a week was that the interface, the user interface that JIRA has is good for about 20, 30 tickets at a time, but we're looking at 500 a week, and our production operations teams need to sort through all that, aggregate it, and then display the right information. So this is our integration with our trading platform software. What you're looking at here is a layout. Each one of the gray boxes, light gray boxes, is a monitor. So that's essentially a JIRA dashboard. So right now you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 monitors, which is 4 dashboards. If you expand that middle piece here, there are tabs as well. So I'm sorting through red packets right now across the bottom monitor. There's green packets, blue packets, EBFs, and so forth. And then over here, this is a breakout of all of the red packets going out for that particular weekend. This is a parent packet monitor, all right? Across the top left here, those are the associated deployment packets. So the relationship here is 1 to many. So if you're looking at the packet down there, 32940, the top left monitor shows all the deployment packets associated with it. As you scroll through the bottom right monitor, it updates the deployment packets accordingly in the top left monitor so that you get to see the full impact of a specific release packet as far as deployments go. All right, we also have hot areas within the dashboard. So if you double click the packet number row, column row, it launches release path in full. All right. Similarly, if you double click the summary column rows, you get the PDF version. And here you get status of the voting for a specific packet. There are so many bells and whistles. I wish I could share them all with you, but I got 3 minutes, 40 seconds left here. But I'll finish off the demo with this. This is our iPad integration. The idea was that we wanted to give our managers and our senior level people the ability to actually review packets and approve packets on the go. So from an iPad, they can do it here. Here's the voting tool, and then just a summary on the packet voting. So JP and I are part of a central governance team, and part of our job is to put in place controls, but naturally we want to put in place all the control. I think when you're making changes like the types of process changes that we're making, you really have to listen to your clients because all the control is not always needed right there. So get the feedback from your managers, your clients, and then make the appropriate changes at the appropriate times. And I think that might be it for us, right? So we got 2 minutes or so for questions.
I'm going to read off the top voted question through the app. It looks like these customizations make you unable to upgrade. Does this concern you, or is this true?
It's not, no, I wouldn't say it stops us. It increases the effort of doing an upgrade. But it definitely doesn't stop us doing an upgrade at all. And it's something that I think we've learned along the way. I mentioned the changes or the things we've done around the document object model of a page. We've definitely learned that we shouldn't do as much as that and really start using the native SDKs a lot more. And also upgrading more often. If you don't upgrade often, you start falling behind, and it makes those upgrades a lot more difficult.
How did you create custom tabs in your JIRA issues, the planning and testing tabs, for example?
JavaScript.
That was pure will. We forced it.
And that's another area where we're going to look to make some more Java-based. We're going to incorporate that into our plugin as opposed to just injecting JavaScript.
Okay, well, that's all the time we have
thanks,
for
guys.
today. And if you guys want to talk to them, please follow them to the back of the room. And they should be back here tomorrow for the Meet the Speakers in this room at 12:15. So thank you.
do it right. We lie so vacant in the dark. Take me now so I can wake up and drift away.